Hello, everybody. So nice to see you all. Welcome to our first Ask Me Anything webinar of 2022. We are live with Google for Creators. So we have Alex Durán and Shishir from the Google for Creators team. And a little bit about them. Alex is the product marketing manager and Shishir is the Google Web Ecosystem Consultant, along with other members of the Web Stories team. So I'm gonna turn the time over to them really quickly to introduce themselves, and then we'll get into some housekeeping of how this will work, and we'll dive into the questions.
I'm in a meeting.
Oh, and if everyone can please keep themselves muted as well. Thank you. All right, Alex, Shishir.
Sure, I can go first. Yeah, hey everybody, great to be here. My name's Alex. Like Abby said, I am a product marketing manager at Google, working on the Google for Creators team. Specifically, our whole team is all about helping content creators on the web. Some of y'all are probably familiar with products like Web Stories. We also recently launched creators.google, which is a hub that's like we're always adding stuff to and working to just make as helpful as possible with new products, tools, and guides and all kinds of tips and tricks for anybody who's creating awesome content for the web. So yeah, very excited to be here. And I can pass it to Shishir now.
Hey everyone, just Shishir here. Very nice to meet you. I think we all met each other last year when we had the session, the virtual conference for tastemakers. So really glad to be here again. I've been at Google close to about 4.5 years now and work closely with Alex on everything technical for web stories. So if you have any technical questions today, happy to answer them, and just generally any questions about web stories. So super excited to be here and look forward to today's session.
Awesome. We are so happy to have you here. So first of all of you here who are live, if you can really quickly just pop in the chat where you are tuning in from, we would love for you to take advantage of the chat. Get involved here. If you want at the end, hi Liz, she's in Michigan. We have 23 people here, so that is somewhat manageable. We're going to take questions at the end. We're going to go through all the questions that were submitted at the beginning before this on that Google form that we sent to everybody. So we'll go through those, but please be asking your questions in the chat as they come to you, as Alex and Shishir are talking. And then for the last 10 to 15 minutes, we will open it up to those questions. And if there's time, we can also open up the room if you would like to show your face and talk, because I think we're all missing out on that in-person connection. So we will just play that by ear as that goes, but we will go ahead and get started. But let's see where everyone's from really quickly. Jessica's in Chicago. Hello, Shannon from Vancouver. Cheryl's in Portland. Nosheen, Mississippi. Lori, hello from Albuquerque. Panama City. Phoenix. Greece. Elena, I would like to be in Greece with you. Alex is in New York City. Cool. North Carolina, Chicago, Vancouver, Chile. So we have people from all over the world joining us in this small little group. So that's great. All right, so let me get into these questions here. And I'm going in chronological order, Alex and Shishir. So if anything is duplicated or these are questions you are not able to answer legally, we totally understand, but I'm just gonna get in there and ask them. So first things here are Sachiko wants to know, how do I know which backlinks to disavow? I was shocked to see over 100 backlinks. Many of them appear to be pure spam. I'm assuming that is in relation to their backlinks for web stories.
Right. So I assume that when you say backlinks, you mean links that are present within a web story or that are included within web stories. If that is the case, I believe that, so web stories are an open platform, right? They're just like building your own website or building your own blog. So you can design it any way that you want. And unfortunately, the one that you came across from somebody else had just a lot of backlinks inserted in there. And so that is definitely not a great user experience. Given that it's a blog and a site, there's nothing as Google that we do to remove backlinks or to change your site in any way, but it might impact the way that your site is viewed and perceived by users. So we don't necessarily remove backlinks, or we don't cancel backlinks in any way, but we just remind folks through our external messaging and through um, uh, just general education that whenever you add links to your web stories, make sure it really fits your narrative. It doesn't like pull people out of what they're consuming as they're consuming the story, and it should really be very organic as you add them in. I don't know if she's or they're on the call and they're able to like ask the question live, if this answered the question or not, but hopefully.
I don't think she's on the call. This is from the form that we sent out to collect questions before. So I think that is sufficient though.
Okay.
So Amanda wants to know, should people be putting web stories into their blog post or just creating them on their own?
I can take a stab at this, and Alex, please chime in as well. Absolutely, web stories can definitely be added to your blog. Uh, in fact, it's highly recommended as one of the ways for stories to be discovered by Google. So, like, there's various ways that stories get discovered by Google. You can add it to your sitemaps, or you could embed it into your blog. So definitely highly recommend doing that. It's a great way to drive engagement to your content. So for example, if you have a web story, if say you're a food blogger, obviously, so if you have a story about a recipe that you're posting, you could add a web story in there that talks about an ingredient that you use within the web story. So they play a great complement to your existing content. Or you could have a carousel of web stories right on your homepage. So when users get your site, you can dive in and click into that. I do believe we've published a pretty robust playbook about how to embed web stories on your blogs. I think, I don't know if I have a link to that right here, but maybe you can send that out in post comms, like post event comms, be on here. And I don't know, Alex, if you had anything to add to that.
Yeah, I think I would plus one to everything Shishir said. I think I would add that, we've seen a lot of creators and a lot of small publishers, especially, use web stories as an add-on to a blog post. So like Shishir was saying, obviously a web story is a great way to drive additional traffic on top of your original blog post to your website. So if you can add a complementary web story to a blog post, especially if it's not replicating the content, if it is building upon it in some way or giving a unique perspective through the visual nature of the format, I think that's all the better. And yeah, definitely, feel free, like Shishir was saying, to play around and see like how your audience reacts to it. There are a lot of cool ways to integrate web stories more into your website. So if somebody does go directly to your website, they can check out more of your stories. But then again, obviously web stories are a great way to get people to your website in the first place. So I think that's what's really cool about the format, is it is very much a playground, and you can kind of cater it to what works best for your ultimate CTA, your ultimate, maybe you're selling courses, maybe you're trying to sell cookbooks, whatever it may be. Yeah, great for those kinds of things.
Awesome. Thank you for that. Should branding be a part of our web stories or just do something flashy? How important is the branding element?
I'd say branding is pretty important as part of your web stories. We've seen a lot of, so we work with a lot of publishers and creators in the past, and what they'll do is they will adapt the web story and the templates that they use to fit their branding and their site. I mean, as the web stories go on your site and they're consumed by the users that are used to seeing your site and visiting your site, it's very important to like have the branding continue and exist and mirror what appears on your site. That being said, there's no restriction. Like, feel free to do something very different and flashy if you want to do a pop of color compared to what you had normally. You're absolutely free to do that, because again, designing a web story is just like designing a site that you build. So yeah, absolutely brand, but feel free to change things around. Again, the web stories for WordPress plugin and various other plugins have templates that you can customize. I don't believe you have the ability to save templates just yet in the WordPress plugin. That should be coming soon. But some of the other tools that we work with, like if you think about Make Stories or Newsroom, you have the ability to actually save templates. So once you create a branded template, you can save that and then reuse that again and again for your various stories.
Great. I'm going to turn over to the chat here because there are some duplicates of the questions here and the ones that were pre-submitted. So Liz is asking let's see here. How many web stories should food bloggers publish weekly? Many of us have thousands of evergreen blog posts to pick from, and often our recipes are seasonal and relevant time and time again.
Right. So web stories, I'll start by saying I think web stories is a pretty new product. I think we are still figuring out and still investigating and still researching on the best ways to surface web stories, how to surface evergreen content, how to surface seasonal content. So with that caveat in mind, I do suggest that there's no limit to how many web stories you can publish. Feel free to publish as many as you think will drive traffic to your site, as many as that users will like to consume. If you're thinking about seasonality, again, we have no specific direction, but say you have Thanksgiving coming up, you want to post some Thanksgiving recipes. I'd say a general rule of thumb is maybe a week to a few days before is what you generally use. Again, there's no like hard rule here. You could publish it a few, like maybe a month, like a couple of weeks before as well. I wouldn't recommend publishing it on the day off or maybe a day before, because it may not get picked up in time for it to be surfaced or shown anywhere. This is assuming that you want to show it on Google surfaces. Otherwise, if you want to surface it on your own blog or on your own social media, there's no restriction. You can. It's just like sharing a link to an article. You just share a link to your web story, so you're free to use them and publish them as needed whenever you like.
Great.
Hopefully
Renee would like to know, recently when I publish a new story, it takes a couple of days to show up on my site or web stories page. It also takes a week or more to be indexed by Google. Any insight on this?
So web stories, once published, especially on your site, should show up immediately. There's no restriction or no limitation in terms of timing there. It just lives just like an article on your page. As soon as you publish an article, it's available. You can embed it on another page. You can post it on social media, etc. The same is the case with web stories. In terms of being picked up by Google and then being shown on Google services, that is unfortunately, I don't think, like, even probably Alex and I don't have visibility into that, because at Google we have a sort of separation of church and state, so we don't really have information as to when things get surfaced or when things get indexed. And so for those reasons, and there's a multitude of factors that go into determining how stories and how content in general gets picked up and shown and ranked and all of that fun stuff. So I don't think we have a specific answer for that. But I will say that the team at Google did a blog post a few months back about how to be successful on search with web stories, and we can request them to do more such posts in the future as well.
Yeah, I think that would be great, because that seems to be a bulk of the questions here. Richard, to build on that, if a web story is indexed and performs poorly, would it be wise to delete the web story and create a new one with a new URL? Or do you suggest just updating and republishing the existing story?
Again, I don't think we have any specific guidance here. The same principles and SEO principles that apply to other parts of your site, like articles and blogs, applies to web stories as well. So follow all the best practices that you would for web stories that you would for other parts of your site. Alex,
okay.
And if you have anything to add to that.
Yeah, I'd echo everything you said. I think that generally, like, again, web stories at the end of the day are a web page under the hood, and knowing that, treat them the same way you would treat a blog post, especially when it comes to SEO and just the way you share them in general.
Okay, and I'm assuming the answer will be similar, but I'm going to ask it because Richard asked, does Google weigh web story visibility based on the authority of the website?
The same answer as we've been giving.
That's what I figured.
It depends. It depends on it depends. It mirrors exactly what applies to the other parts of your site. So if that applies to your blogs and your articles and your recipes, whatever else you post. That would apply to web stories as well, because as Alex mentioned, at the end of the day, it's just a URL in a browser, and it's just, it works just like a web page essentially.
Okay.
Yeah, and I think one thing I can add to that is like generally on the product side of the house, they are always looking to expand and find more ways to highlight more diverse content across the entire web. So that's definitely something and feedback we can always carry over, and just know like that's something that they're always trying to work, find like really cool content that might not necessarily be like a huge website, but provides great value to users. That's something that generally across Google is being worked on. So
Great. That's good news. We like hearing that. So back to the pre-submitted questions. Clara is from Zambia, and she wanted to know if Google Creators is currently doing anything with Zambian creators. We are booming with creators. It would be nice to work hand in hand with Google for Creators so as to grow and get better. And I think this is an extension of that question of the international presence of Google for Creators and are there opportunities for those creators outside of the United States?
yeah, I can answer this one.
Okay.
So currently we have not done anything with Zambian creators. I think it's like super, super cool to hear that, you are booming with creators. And like, if you want to reach out to us on Twitter or our email, like definitely feel free to. We'd love to see what you're up to and generally just like ways we could partner. We're always looking to highlight creators doing really interesting things, always looking to highlight creators with really cool websites. So definitely feel free to reach out to us on social. Now, once I'm done talking, I can plug like some of our social handles in the chat. But yeah, that's really cool to see. And like I said, we're always open to more opportunities. And depending on how things go, can definitely connect you to like folks on my team who could help, partner on content, creator spotlights, all that kind of stuff. So
Great. That's a great resource. This goes back to the search and SEO, but I'm going to ask it anyway. Sean wants to know the midterm roadmap for Google Web Stories for creators. It's been a hit and miss with how it recently rolled into SERP in November, not showing up at times in Google Discover. Is there one team that works with stories, or is it a team of people among various disciplines? I ask because we get good traffic, but it can be difficult to get good insight into user behavior and where they are served. It changes so often.
Like, I thought it was like 2 days ago that you came and told me.
Right. So Google, as I mentioned in the beginning, Google Web Stories is a pretty new product. We're sort of still experimenting and figuring out the right places to launch and serving traffic and all of that. So it did initially launch in Google Search. I will say that the plan is for it to get more traction and to serve in more surfaces over time. So we hear you loud and clear in terms of there being a lack of traffic and it not being consistent. I think one of the goals of the team is to help provide more consistency in terms of traffic. I will say that in terms of getting analytics and insights from the data, you're probably already very familiar with like Google Analytics and you have your own dashboards and stuff set up. But we have built a sample dashboard in Google Data Studio that works with Google Analytics. And if you simply just plug in your Google Analytics ID into that, it provides you a great overview of the Google Story performance. So I can share a link to that in the chat. And I believe we have a blog post on that coming out soon, and also have a video on our Google for Creators YouTube site that just dives a lot more into the dashboard. So not super clear, but hopefully that helps.
Yeah, and confirming, we do have a blog post coming out next week with a little more specific guidance on how to use that Insights dashboard and some more visuals and examples to help someone set that up. So look forward to that on our Google for Creators blog.
Wonderful. Love hearing that all these resources are coming out. Lori has a question, and I know she's in here in the group. Lori, I'm going to put you on the spot, and I'm going to read your question, but if you want to turn on your mic and your camera, you can talk to the folks here at Google. Because Lori, she was asking, is there a limit to how many web stories a creator can manually request to be indexed, and can each site only have so many pages indexed at a time? Does manually requesting indexing of a page lead to another page being unindexed? So I'll let you guys answer that. And if she wants to pop in, she can.
Sure. Hey, I don't think there's a limit on the number of stories that you can request for manual indexing. Again, unless we're talking about like millions of pages, I doubt it's gonna be a significant issue. So feel free to request manual indexing. I don't think indexing one page causes another to get unindexed. I will say that instead of using the manual indexing approach, we highly suggest using like automated approaches, like create a sitemap for your stories or your site. Make sure you submit that to Google, and then that way, every time you publish a story, your sitemap gets automatically updated, and Google automatically reads the sitemap and then reads your stories. There's other mechanisms as well, like RSS feeds and things like that. There's a lot of we've been like the sitemaps are a pretty industry standard. They've been there for like many decades. So there's a lot of documentation out there on how to create and build sitemaps. So we definitely recommend doing that as opposed to having to manually submit every story or every article.
Thank you very much. This is Lori, by the way, who just asked the question. Can I piggyback on my question really quick with another question? And maybe, Abby, I hope I'm not hijacking someone else's, but the plugin has been, as Abby knows, I'm an avid, actually I'm making one while I'm listening, web stories fan. And the plugin has been super glitchy lately, a lot of very buggy, a lot of, you sit and wait and you wait and you wait and things like that. I know with each update, things are hopefully getting better, but you guys are aware of that, right? Correct?
Yeah, I don't think we've seen something very broad where we've seen a lot of glitches. I think we're working with a bunch of creators. It happens from time to time for a few creators, but not across the board. Very often when a plugin is slow or glitchy or has issues, it most of the times is due to some conflicting plugin that's running on your WordPress instance. So what I'd highly suggest doing is if you go on to the WordPress support forum, so if you go to the WordPress plugin, there's like a support forum, go on and post your issues there. And like the best thing to do is if you could post a video of the actual issues as they're happening. That forum is manned by a specialized team as well as like all the Google engineers that actually work on the plugin, and they'll be able to see firsthand what is happening, and then they'll help you debug your issue. And historically, I've seen like 95 to 99% success rates of people working with folks in that forum. So I'd highly suggest reaching out to them. They're very active. It's managed, and you'll get a response back, and someone will help debug your issue for sure.
Perfect. Thank you very much.
Yep. Thank you.
Great. And it was nice to see your face, Lori, and see other people here in the chat. Okay, so Kim is wondering where to get started, and that piggybacks on some of the questions in the chat. For those who are new, what resources do you have? What would you recommend the playbook for them to get started?
Yeah, I can jump in on this one. So right now, the home base for all of our content related to web story, and I assume this question's about web stories. So
Yes.
Right now, our home base for web stories is stories.google, just like that. You can also Google web stories and it'll show up. But yeah, that's a great place to get started, to see really good examples, see all the tools that are available out there, see best practices, see various guides and documentation. We also post a lot of content related to web stories, like some of the links that Shishir has shared on the Google for Creators blog. We're actually now just in the process of moving over all of that content from stories.google to our newer website, creators.google. So you can still go to stories.google for now today. But in the near future, we're going to have a bunch of guides, a bunch of content. I think something like 11 or 12 guides on every aspect of web stories that are going to be living on creators.google. So that'll be a great one-stop shop to see examples, get best practices, choose a tool, etc. If you are using WordPress, I definitely say that the easiest way by far to get started is to download the Web Stories for WordPress plugin, which I can link after this in the chat. But yeah, that's definitely the easiest way. since it integrates really well with your existing WordPress site. And if you're not using WordPress, I think I actually saw another question about that.
Yeah.
If you're not using WordPress, if you go to stories.google, you go to the tools page, it's right in the upper hand tab. You can see there are a bunch of other tools like Make Stories, Newsroom AI, which are other third-party tools, not created by Google, but they do allow you to at least create the web story, which you can then implement on your website. And they have various ways to do so, but they have a ton of guides and documentation to do it. So yeah, highly recommend checking that out. And there's a bunch of other tools too. I just mentioned 3, but.
Wonderful. Yeah. And I was going to touch on that question by Robin. So thank you for taking that. Liz wants to know, sorry, Shishir, go for it.
I'll also add a couple of other resources. One, the blog that we publish, that has a lot of like insights. It's a little more advanced there because it's not like how to get started, but it's like how to keep along and keep carrying along. And the other really great resource is the YouTube channel that we have. It's an amazing resource. I think there's a whole series on the Storytime. It's called the Storytime series. I think we have like 41 episodes now. If you watch that right from the start, it has really great like topics about how to post on social media and how to build better typography and how to add like posters and things like that. So highly recommend checking out that the YouTube series as well. It's linked off our Google for Creators YouTube channel.
Wonderful.
Sorry.
Thank you. Liz would like to know, are there any common Google Web Story mistakes you've seen that we should avoid? What would be your best takeaway for those of us attending this live that we don't already know? Not that you know what they know, but do's and don'ts.
Yeah, so I'd suggest as you build your web stories, so I think the one, try to include as many videos as possible. I think we've seen time and time again that content with videos really outperforms content without videos. So definitely do that. Second, if you do include videos, don't include it just for the sake of including videos. Make sure it fits the narrative. The ideal, I mean, especially as creators, the best way to surface your content is for you to just get in front of the camera and talk right into the camera. And I think that really appeals to the audience, that makes you connect with the audience, and that really drives a lot more engagement. So we've seen that kind of content do really well as well. Technically, when you're creating your web stories, again, follow all the SEO best practices that you would for any other web page. So if you have a video, try to include a subtitle file for that. If you have an image, try to include a description or like an accessibility block for that. So be as descriptive about your content as possible. As you're building your content out, make sure it's not too wordy or verbose on screen. Just having the right amount of data or right amount of text there is really important. Technically, as you build out your web story, make sure you include a poster image for that. And we have specifications and dimensions for that on our site. So make sure you do add a poster image. And then another really important point is to add a cover image and an end page or like a closing page for your stories. That really helps bookend the experience, so people know where they get started and they know where they finish, as opposed to just like diving right into content when you kick off your story. So I think these are some of like the tips and best practices. I believe these have been included. You'll find a lot of these or more of these as you go through our YouTube series and our blog posts and all of that. Again, there's a lot of, it's a big topic. So there's a lot more that we can potentially share, but in the interest of time, I think these are like the top maybe 5-6 tricks or tips that I've shared right now. Alex, I don't know if you had anything else that you've seen that was helpful.
Yeah, I think I would echo everything you said, and I think another thing that I would just I'd mention is that we've seen a lot of the stories that do well. They sounds like a cliche to say, but they're telling a story. They're not necessarily just a like a bunch of random pictures thrown together with links. Like the web stories that are both like seeing the most engagement and just generally getting the best reception are those that use the format for its unique qualities. So the fact that you can tap through a story, the fact that you can go back and forth, and you can mix video and images and link out to maybe like relevant content when it makes sense. But yeah, definitely at the end of the day, I would just recommend not to make a story just for the sake of making a story, but really like making a story that like you're going to be proud of, and that at the end of the day, like if you send to someone, you know, it does tell like a complete narrative from start to finish. I forget if you mentioned this, Shishir, but I know like we also like encourage like video, specifically like first person video, like especially when people see a face. Like I think that's true across like all platforms. When people can connect directly with the creator, that tends to perform better. So
That's great advice. Liz, I know you're here live on the call. If you want to turn on your mic or your camera and ask any follow-up questions, feel free to do so. And then in the meantime, we will go to Chelsea's question. She said, some of my new blog posts themselves, not stories, have been getting pushed out through Google Discover lately, resulting in significant traffic. I'm thrilled, but would love to understand how or why this is happening better so I can be more intentional about it.
About a year and a half ago, if I would say, or maybe a year ago, we launched web stories in Discover. So Discover, to level set, is basically an interest-based feed that shows up in the -1 screen on your Android phones, or in your Google app on your iPhones, or in your Chrome browsers. And I say interest-based because it shows you content based on your interests and your browsing history, and what you've liked and disliked in the past. So based on that, you will get web stories that show up there. So for example, if you like a lot of fitness content and you're interested in fitness, you'll see more fitness type stories show up there. So the reason why your stories show up in the Discover post is because your stories have been indexed by Google, they've seen by Google, Google knows that they're web stories, and then somebody is shown interest in the type of content that you're publishing, and hence that's why that content will show up there. Right now, there's no way for us to provide you with insights as to why your content was picked. I think that's something on our roadmap to like provide more insights to creators. But as I said, if you'd like to know more about why, like how a given story is performing, once it is picked, that might provide you some insights into, all right, maybe the creators liked this about my story, and then they tapped into 4 pages deep into my story. They like this part of my content. That is available to the Web Stories Insights dashboard that I had shared earlier. But other than that, it's basically because you produce content that folks like. And that's why specifically with Discover, you might see some content perform really well and others maybe not as well, just maybe because there isn't enough interest that folks have shown towards that particular topic. Again, that's one factor that goes into it. There's many other factors that cause stories to show up in a place or not. So it depends. And again, this is only Google Discover. As we expand to more surfaces in the future, traffic patterns will change and they will evolve.
Great. Next question here is, you already answered, do photos or videos perform better? Is there a way to download the slides on web stories so we can use them on Pinterest and on social media for repurposing content?
At the moment, I don't believe there's a way to download your content to reuse on other sites. The only way to do it right now is to share it on social media as links. I believe in the YouTube series that we linked earlier, there's a specific video on how to share your stories on social media. So I think Paul talks about sharing on Instagram, on I think Twitter, Pinterest, like a few different social media sites. So I think that's the best approach to use for now. In the future, where again, there's thoughts about making it like more portable, so you can use it across formats. But just because like at the moment, Google Web Stories is an open web platform, and then it's not easy to share this within like an Instagram stories, which is a very specific format, or a Pinterest post that is a very specific format. That's why it's restricted. It's not easily shareable natively in these other platforms as you would in a browser.
Okay, great. Shannon is going to come off mute and ask you a technical question related to incorporating certain features with the web story. So we'll wait for Shannon.
Hi, thank you so much for taking my question. So I know that you've mentioned several times that you want, it sounds like you primarily want video for web stories, and that you want it to very much feel like a video. And I'm finding for myself when I am using video to show, it's like a how-to for recipes. I create recipes and share how to make those. And one thing that I would love to do in regards to, I guess, incorporating SEO into those videos is how can I, like when you're making a recipe and you're putting ingredients one after another, I like to show a quick little title of what that ingredient is and then have it disappear and then put on a new title when I show the next ingredient. Is there a way to do that within Google Web Stories? Because I know right now for each page, if I put a video on each page, I can put a title, but I can't have those titles come in and out at certain points during the video. So I was wondering if there's a feature that maybe I'm missing, or if that feature even exists.
So I think it is possible using animations that are available in the Web Stories plugin. I think it's not very advanced at the moment. I think there'll be a lot more more advanced animations coming in, but there is a way for you to basically cause an animation to show up at a certain point in a video and then disappear at a certain point, or to I don't know if it's possible to make it disappear, but it's definitely possible to make it appear at a certain point. I would like play around with the animations feature. And again, if it's not something that is supported, or if it's not enough for your needs, the engineering team is constantly looking for newer ideas and newer ways to add content or to add features. So what I can do is on my end, I will, like after this call, I will try playing around with it as well. And then if it's not available, I'll add it as a feature request. The other thing that you can do is the Web Stories plugin is an open source project, and open source is basically is like anyone can go and contribute to it and add ideas to it. So we have this is going to be a little technical, but we have a GitHub page, which is basically the place that we store all of our code, and you can go in there and make feature requests for different features. So as a creator, you can just go onto that page, and there's a way to submit a request for, oh, I want to add XYZ feature to Web Stories. Is it possible? So that would be, I think, like outside of the call, if you have this call, if you have other ideas or features to add, I would suggest going to that page. I will link it in the chat right here. I don't know, Alex, are there any other ways for folks to like provide feedback through the Google for Creators to add features to tools and stuff like that?
I think, yeah, I probably would say that's the main one. I don't know, would the WordPress forum be a good place, do you think, to the WordPress support forum be a good place as well, maybe to ask questions? I know that does go ultimately back to the technical side of the team, but yeah, what do you think?
Yeah, the support forum might be a good place as well to post. So I'd suggest like going to that route as well. So I'd say basically use the WordPress support forum or the GitHub to do that. I'm going to link to the GitHub right now. So if you go to this page, it'll say new issue in the top right, and that's where you can basically submit a request to get a new feature added. Sorry, it's a little more complicated, a little more technical to add request features, but this is the post that I have right now.
Could I ask one more follow-up question?
Yeah.
Is Google Web Stories able to read text? If I was to take my video and incorporate the names of those recipe ingredients at different timing during the video in a different platform that allows me to do that, and then take that video and put it into Google Web Stories so that people can see the titles showing up, but I wouldn't have created those titles within the web story itself. Like, will Google Web Stories still pick up on the words in that video, and will it still work toward keywords and SEO, or does it have to be made specifically within Google Web Stories?
So the recommendation is always to make it within Google Web Stories, but we realize that there are situations like this where it's not possible and you have to build it in another app. So we have had creators do this in the past, and it does work. Google is not able to read the video and the text within the video, but the alternative to that is when you do add the video, use the description and the accessibility block. So when you click on the video in the WordPress plugin, for instance, and you click on design, you scroll to the bottom, there's a description block and an accessibility block. So any text that appears in the video, make sure you add that into those boxes, and that way Google knows like what is the text being shown on the video. The other thing is, if you're talking in the video, if there's like speech in the video, either add your entire spoken text into those boxes as well, or alternatively, and the recommended approach is to add a subtitle file. So I think WebStory supports the .vtt file format. There's a number of free VTT creators out there. So you basically just create a subtitle file and you upload it. Again, when you click on the video, there should be a subtitles and caption section. So you just upload your VTT file on there. So if there's like burned in text that's burned into the video from another app, make sure you add it to the accessibility in the description blocks. And then if there's subtitles, either add the spoken text into those blocks or add a subtitle file. Add a subtitle file into the editor. Hope that helps.
Awesome. Thank you.
Thanks, Shannon, for coming on. So back to the video topic, Muriel would like to know, she says, I've been hesitant to use video so it does not slow down my site. Do you recommend video on every slide, or will it still gain traction just including a few with video? And that piggybacks on what Lori asked. She wants to know if you can link video that is hosted elsewhere like YouTube so as to not burden the servers or their sites. That's the main concern.
Great question. All right, so I'll break videos down into a few different pieces. The first is the storage aspect, and the second is the actual serving and the bandwidth aspect. So in terms of storage, we've heard multiple issues with like creators saying that videos eat up bandwidth and they take up all this. Let's say not bandwidth, they eat up all the storage space and they're very large. So there's a few things that we've done here to help improve the situation. One is whenever you have a video on your desktop that you've uploaded to your desktop, if it's an MOV file, even an MP4 file, if you drag it directly into your media. So if you open up the Web Stories editor, and if you open up the Web Stories editor, and there's a panel on the left, which is your media panel. There's a middle, which is the canvas, and the right, which is the design/document section. If you drag your video directly into that left panel, it'll automatically convert your videos from MOV to MP4, and it will also auto-optimize your videos such that it'll shrink it down in size. So that should help with lowering the amount of space taken up by videos on your site. Again, don't use extremely large videos. Use like at most 10 to 15 seconds. I'd say like 8 to 10 seconds is probably ideal, because at that point you've lost the user's interest. So shorter videos help, and that also helps with how the videos load on the site. The second thing that we've done is we've launched the ability to host videos, to add videos that are hosted elsewhere on the site. So again, if you go into that media box on the left, in the left panel, there should be a little link there that says, like a link icon there that says, can I link my story, like link your stories to external sources. And you can now actually link a web story, a video file that's hosted elsewhere into your story. Right now, I do not believe it supports YouTube, so it'll have to be like an actual MP4 file. I do believe Google Drive is supported. If it's not, let us know and we can like look into that. But you should be able to link your file externally from external sources. Let me actually see if I can share my screen. I can share. No,
yep, no, let me here. Let me do this really quick. I will allow you to do that because I think everyone would enjoy seeing how that is done. You can now share.
1 second. Can you all see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. So the first tip that I had about moving videos over. So this left panel here, don't use the media. You don't drag it into your media manager. Drag it into this left panel that I'm moving my cursor over, and that will auto optimize the videos. The second thing that I suggested was using this insert by link options. If you click on that, you can actually insert a video by link. So I have a video here, for instance, that I found online. It's just a regular MP4 file, and if I add it here by link, oh wait, there's some issue. It was working for me yesterday. All right, so maybe they turned off access, but as long as the access is available, it should work. I don't know why that worked. I literally just did it yesterday. But basically, that's how you insert links. You just use the insert by link, and you insert a URL there, and it should automatically cause the video to get embedded onto the page. The second topic is around bandwidth. So that is when your video does get served, how much traffic is it taking up on your site? And so what we've done for that is we've enabled a cache that where basically all your videos are cached by Google, and then when they're served, they actually get served from cache. So we've seen like almost 99% of all your videos should be served from cache, and so that should really restrict your bandwidth usage when serving web stories. So hopefully that helps solve some of the issues for both the storage and the bandwidth side. And I know we'll continue coming up with like newer ways, like maybe using YouTube videos or other approaches to keep improving the video experience. Because we, as you said, videos are super important. We realize creators would like to use them, and we like to make it like the most seamless process to include videos in web stories.
So Shishir, Lori was saying that what happened to you when you tried to add that link to the video, that's also happening to her when she links it. So it might be a larger issue. Lori, if you want to hop on and add any feedback there, you can too.
Oh yeah, no, that's just what I messaged you. That's exactly what I tried to. And I did try a YouTube one as well, but clearly you said you're not, that's not compatible yet, but I did try another one and I had that same error pop up. So
have you tried, did it work? Like, did you just try it or have you seen it fail?
No, this was a couple of days ago. I was trying it. So I'm not, like the story I'm working on right now, I don't have video for, so I did not try it for that one. But I will try it over the weekend with serving it through my Google Drive and see if how that works.
Sure, yeah, because I literally just like met with a bunch of creators yesterday and I showed this feature and it worked just fine. So I'm pretty surprised it isn't working right now.
It's always the way,
but
right?
I will,
That's always how it is.
Yeah, like, Murphy's Law, right?
Right.
But I will test this out a little bit more and I'll report it to our engineering team.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you for pointing that out.
Great. Let's see here. These have been answered already. So here's one question that hasn't. Are web stories going to be on Apple products anytime soon?
So web stories are an open web format. So they should work on every device as long as you have a browser or an ability to show content within a browser. So there's no restrictions in terms of where it can or cannot show up. It should work just fine on Apple devices. I believe if you're referring to the Discover app on iOS, it does work. Like I have an iPhone and it does show up on the Discover app as well. And it should show up in search as well. So I think if you look for like things to do in New York, you'll see a bunch of like visual stories show up in the browser. So I believe it should work already, unless there was something else that you wanted with regards to Apple devices. So if
I don't have any more. I don't have any more context for that question. That's all that was there in the form. So I think that is sufficient for the answer there. So that is, those are all the questions that I have on my end. So I think this is a good time. We have about 10 minutes left if we want to use that. If you hit the reaction button on your Zoom browser here, you can raise your hand or you can leave a message in the chat if you would like to unmute yourself and ask Shishir or Alex questions directly, because it's not every day you get real FaceTime with the team from Google for Creators and Web Stories. So we want to leave some time for that. And if you've already asked questions and you want to ask again, go for it. So we'll just wait and see if anybody wants to hop on. No takers. Are we all being shy today? That's fine. Alex or Shishir, oh wait, Kathy has a question. On the search question, will it start to show on desktops Google search?
I don't know if I'm not aware of any plans, or I don't think we have any product specific roadmaps for the product available right now. I will say that web stories are a mobile first product and they're optimized for viewing on mobile devices. But that doesn't mean that they don't work on desktops. If you open up your web story in a desktop browser, it should load just fine. So in terms of like showing up on Google search, they can show up as like blue links. So example, if you're building web stories and I type your blog space web stories, you should be able to get your web stories show up even on desktop search as a blue link. So nothing prevents that from happening.
Okay, great. Shannon has a great question here. Do you have a recipe web story example that you think is a great example for how we should strive to create our stories for this food blogging and creator community?
We have a bunch of them. So if you go to the site that Alex linked to earlier, which is the stories.google, we have a showcase section there. Yep, we just linked it there. There's a bunch of food examples there. And Alex, I don't know if you want to jump in and share more on that.
Yeah, I was about to say the exact same thing. Just linked it. If you go to that page and you click food, you'll see a lot of examples of many of which are made with the WordPress and a few other tools as well. So you can kind of see a diverse range of different stories. Some use video, some use just photos, but I think it's a really good, really good examples across the board of like what's possible for a food story. And like personally, I think food is such a great vertical of content for web stories because obviously it's a very linear process. And just even like, if somebody is preparing a dish, like think about the fact that somebody, might want to go back and forth between steps and like what that looks like in terms of the story you're creating. So definitely check that out. And, we're, as we do migrate over stories.google to the creators.google website, we are looking to add more examples. So stay tuned for that.
Wonderful. So I think this is a good place for us to end. Alex or Shishir, any parting words of advice or places that we can find you and can be following up?
Yeah, totally. I can chime in, and Shishir definitely feel free as well. I first just want to say it's been an absolute pleasure to join y'all, and we're like super excited to like follow up after speaking at last year's digital conference. And yeah, I think if anyone has like any questions or is just looking for the latest on everything Google's doing when it comes to creation on the web, definitely follow us on Twitter, subscribe to our YouTube channel. On YouTube, we are Google for Creators. On Twitter, we're at Google Creators. We also have an Instagram, Google for Creators as well, where we post all kinds of creator spotlights, all kinds of various tips and tricks related to like how to best succeed on the web as a creator. Also, we're always looking for opportunities to like spotlight and highlight more creators. So definitely feel free to reach out. Tag us if you ever post a really cool web story and you're sharing it on social. Definitely tag us. We can see if we can retweet that or just like share it more widely with our audience. But aside from that, we're just getting started. Like Google for Creators and web stories, like Shishir mentioned, are very new. So I think there's a lot of exciting stuff coming up. We're looking to really lean more into community in the next several months and start like forming like organic communities where we're able to like facilitate and help creators help other creators. So stay tuned for a lot more. And follow our channels where you'll get the latest on all of that.
I'll echo everything that Alex said, and just want to thank everyone for being present and attending today. And really great to see excited to see all the great content that's coming from this platform. Thanks so much.
Wonderful. Yes. Thank you again for joining us and taking the time to share all of this information with the Tastemaker community. So for those of you who are coming to the in-person conference in March, we'll have the opportunity to hear from Google creators as well. So this is a conversation that will continue on. So if you have more questions, keep them coming. And we will also be releasing this recording in the collaborative. We will put together a document with all of the links and resources that Alex and Shishir have mentioned here so that it lives in one place so you can have that. And if there's any other questions, post it in the collaborative and we will talk to you all soon. Thanks, Alex and Shishir.
Thank you all. Bye-bye.